Greetings and salutations, Brave Hearts, Urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters, and welcome to the Kindred Coaching Quest, part 3, and the final installment of this series. This morning's meditation involved just the spine of the 9 card spread that was interpreted in parts 1 and 2. And so the spine of the spread, make sure I read this properly. The spine of the spread is 3 cards. The top card being the Mother of Cups, the middle card being the Three of Pentacles, and the base of the spread being the Ten of Cups. So as we conclude this series, I have structured it like this. I am going to read the opening statements of the transcript that will be attached to this recording, as well as go briefly through the summaries of each card through the referencing of the guidebook, as well as close out with a journaling sentiment that I drafted this morning. Doing this series not only had it taken me out of my comfort zone because I did not feel like I wanted to render my personal feelings about my own story. But then, after much contemplation, as well as a few lectures that served as a sign of confirmation, I decided to tap into this, regardless of my comfort level, regardless of the potential disagreements, pushbacks, and lopsided ass judgments that may surround my own personal story and the storylines involved. Why? Because I am stepping into the wisdom of nothing that has happened to me has been in vain, and that my front row seat unto this eye of emotional chaos was so that I could analyze, process, transmute, and intuit. It has enhanced my intuitive levels beyond words. And as I mentioned in part 1, I believe that all that has transpired since 2008 has a lot to do with Pluto being in the sign of Capricorn, which is my sun sign. So the essence and the energy directives coming straight from Pluto's heart was intended for me to be able to understand and explain. Now, even though when it first began, I had no idea I was going to be at the end of this labeled a so called deadbeat parent. And quite honestly, had I not gone through it firsthand, I would not have had the sensational connectivities to such a thing. I would have known it existed, but I still would have had a judgment from a sideline view, which would have not only hindered me in my ratios of passion and empathy, but it would have also kept my impression at such a distance that I wouldn't have had the creed or caliber to speak upon it. And I say that because I am one that wholeheartedly believes that if you have not felt it and dealt it firsthand, speaking upon it is risky business. It's very risky business. So I know that with my firsthand experience in conjunction with all that I have been learning to strengthen my pen as a writer and check myself as a coach, as well as serve as my own teacher and my own student, availed me an objectivity where I can lend myself into different perspectives without judgment. Because at the end of the day, judgment suspends and arrests development. Plain and simple. And I am not the first to say it, nor shall I be the last to say it. That you really must walk in a similar pair of shoes in order to be able to speak appropriately when the opportunity arises. So, this series serves as my opportunity on a multitude of levels, mainly my road to redemption, and how I now view my placement inside this realm as a child with parents and a parent with child. This has not been an easy 10-year envelope. Pluto being right in my face demanded me to seek recollection, reconciliation, validation, solve, resolve beyond the physical. Saturn demanded me to find the due diligence in research and development. So at the very close of this session, I am going to pull one card that will signify the overall energetic endowment of what it is that I have presented in these three installments. We are pulling from the Wild Unknown Tarot, and it will be followed up by the summary through its guidebook. And so the theme of the series is loving the curse into the gift. The wounded warrior embarks the wild unknown, learning to sharpen and yield its divine trifecta magics. And the divine trifecta is one's story, its arts, and its acoustic alchemy. And remember, acoustic alchemy does not necessarily consider you the musician more so than the enthusiast, the consumer of it, as a therapeutic alternative to inner healing. So the opening remarks of the transcript goes as follows. Be it love, family, friendship, business, art, craft, music, and or sacred alchemy, the divine masculine's hallmark quality storylines are hidden in plain sight. Their greatest treasures are wrapped up in unsung human natures and ashes from generations upon generations of phoenix rising without proper declaration since year 1916. They have spent plenty of silent moments exploring the synergies of a mixed bag of cultural complexities and outlandishly creative change making. Innovative, expressive powers abound, aid and embed their psychic compensations. And yet, the time and space renders unsafe for them to honestly and wholly show up and be the present. The matters of the heart are being supercharged with all sorts of sentiments, emotional expansions, and legacy foundations. This also involves the giving of true intrapersonal courage to embrace the day to day solidifications of esteem. There's a multi generational curse that hovers over this time and space, waiting to be redeemed into boosts of courageous, contagious, complementary confidence, ancient credence, and visionary connectivity. As this is so, the divine shall ever speak through signs, symbols, story, arts, and acoustic alchemical arrangements. Alongside the channelings of natures surrounding the feminine and the masculine. We'd all do good to pursue life, liberty, and legendary lessons from the inside out. Into the wild unknown, we are being called. No longer will we be engaged with the same old stuff, the same old stories. It is my honor and personal It is my honor and pro personal challenge to unapologetically empower the intra magical maturity continuum that embraces and incubates the teachings and lifelong lessons of one's unique individuality, authentic expression, and cosmic complements. And yes, just in case you're wondering, I did pull out the word wizardry on this one. Why? Because into the wild unknown we go, it can be quite an intimidating feat. So much so that it challenges one's social conditionings, meaning that it has one prop up the mirroring reflection of how they were raised, what they were taught, what what it is that they were lied to about. And when I say lied to about, I mean with regards to one's trends and traditions. Very rarely do we find ourselves being challenged with our beliefs. Most often, the average human never, ever challenges what it was raised up and through, or its psychological groomings, let alone its emotional savvy. We are still contending with a time and space that would love to shun and ignore the emotional side of oneself. Why? Because our social conditionings, especially if you are American influence, is truly rendered through linear logic, the scientific nature of it all. It has to be able to be counted and measured. It has to be be able to stand up to the scrutiny of the sensation of the physical. Because of this, many will think it normal to dismiss the worthy and the value of the co creator of the offspring by way of its ability or lack thereof to generate income and hold to an agenda that is of the other creator, because the offspring takes up residence with one versus the other. Then somehow the rearing and the raising powers are split in the favor of. And I beg to differ. And my entire childhood and the last 10 years have been provoking me to research and develop this difference so that my viewpoints could be properly interpreted. So let's check in with the spine of the spread, starting with the mother of cups. And so while meditating on the spine of the spread, I was charged with the challenge to give a greater understanding of how just these three cards line up as the overall message, the overall theme to the resolution. And so the Mother of Cups, page 98 and 99 of the guidebook, insightful and psychic. And so the natural, intuitive insights shall bring healing through family fundamentals, arts, music, and the blends of true, beautiful expression. And when I mean beautiful, beautiful will be in the eyes of the beholder. It really is an expansive term with regards to how creative we can become as we consider the alternatives of allowing the offspring its just due of the two equal halves that created it, suspending all of the anger ridden manipulation that surrounds the traditions of raising children, and that one half is no more powerful than the other half, especially when we are talking about domestic component. Anytime that I view a situation above the physical, it always comes back to me at how we dismiss the unseen realm and how what is meant to be will be, and that certain situationships, regardless if we ourselves personally view it good, bad, or indifferent, is to render the opportunity for something. Now, we can shun that and stay in our misery and be upset because the other isn't meeting inside the realm of joyful expectation. And so, due to missed or lost expectations or unmet expectations, a brewing anger dwells that always requires some type of vengeance. And another thing that always highlights when I begin to contemplate above the physical is that every individual has its own timing. And I think inside of social conditionings, that is the one thing that is awesomely overlooked because the mindset has been bred to believe that there is a one size fit all template to how one shall mature and evolve. So much so that the inquiry popped into my head for me to begin asking parents, so what do you do with the child that does not meet your expectations, or the child that embarrasses you so badly, or the child that does not render you the type of pride that society says you ought to have as a parent? Or how about this? Does not render you the respect because of the oddity of insightfulness, meaning that the way that you and your offspring view life is at odds. Is there room for that? Is there any wiggle room for the love to expand unconditionally? That you did not have the child so that it could become a mirroring image of you. Another inquiry that settled into my heart space was how many parents literally and objectively say that they ran the higher risk of being the problem and so they removed themselves. I think that it's a lot of weight and gold to consider that people's rejection is God's protection. And that is more of a narrow impression, but it's still an impression all the same. It's a worthy impression. It's optimal when we can actually view that sentiment without any judgment, meaning without attaching any right or wrong to it. The catalytic charge throughout this entire series is the provocation of may you view all situations without trying to categorize it right or wrong through your eyes. And that there is a possibility that there's an innate, intrinsic goings on inside of realms that you can't see above your viewpoint. Will we be able to make space for that? I think one of the most hardest things to get righteous, indignant judgment to do is to suspend itself. And so the middle card in the spread is the Three of Pentacles, which is on page 138 and 139 of the guidebook. Teamwork, determination, and focus. And so when I think about teamwork, it always availed to me that no two in the team arrives with the same contribution. This also is a very fundamental principle inside of tribe work. Those that are working do diligently to restitch the values of the tribe. And so, if only the hunters and gatherers were valued inside the tribe, there would be no tribe. If only the hunters and gatherers felt that their contribution was lending them to be a doormat, there would be no esteem inside the tribe. We must return back to the emotional elasticity that allows us to know that no matter how large or how small, every contribution counts. And so when you get up being high and mighty and thumbing your nose at contributions that you figure are not worthy, that's when the ripples of discontent creeps up. The task ahead is a monumental one. That's what the energy around the Three of Pentacles inside of this guidebook depicts. And I've never, ever, ever presented in the tone that this was going to be easy. I often call it a catalytic feat. So if and whenever there's weary or overwhelm that arrives, we are to focus on the efforts of strength inside of the divine trio, meaning we are to take it back to the love that endorsed the creation in the first place, the mother, the father, the child. Only with the three wheels will the tricycle progress. And so at the base of the spine is the Ten of Cups. And that is on page 92 and 93 of the guidebook. Radiating energy. And so, what that tells me right off the break is that I am in affirmation to suggest that we begin contemplating our situations above the physical. And anytime the opportunity to contemplate above the physical arrives, we must include the shadow side as an opportunity as well, as an exciting opportunity for that matter. There is just as much wealth inside the shadows of trauma as it is inside the joys of triumph. And that our challenges, our domestic challenges, does not come by way of someone doing something wrong versus versus the opportunity for awareness to arrive within the collective, within the trio. And this is not indicative of the multiple of child or the varying natures of the co-creators involved. The structure, the archetype, the architect, the architecture of the trio remains the same, regardless of how many parents or children are involved. And every time I think about that, I often render myself humble with the life example that's provided to me through my stepmom. She is one of the best stepmom examples I know to date. And it's not an easy position, especially seeing that all of her stepchildren are grown. Her and my dad been standing side by side for over 25 years. So she has had to serve as the representative. She serves as the cheerleader. She serves as the advocate. She serves as the interpreter. Sometimes she has to serve in places where I know she figures she wouldn't rather be, but inside of her esteem with our crest and creed, she takes it all up. And you know, one thing that I say, and I'll say often whenever I get the chance, you never, ever have to doubt her love for her husband's children. Ever. And another thing that's really miraculous about the living examples that have been put before me in order for me to analyze, appropriate, and come to the most affirmed conclusions ever is that my mom endorsed my stepmom when she was living. Why? Because she knew that my stepmom played a role that affirmed my dad, which ultimately made it good for the entire circle involved. Now, that's not to say we aren't humans. And I think I've been transparent enough within this series to show you that there is still a lot of healing and work that needs to be done. But the existence of the shadow is being acknowledged. The only way you can heal it is to begin feeling it. Acting like it doesn't exist perpetuates the curse. We have to begin to embrace and love the curse. So that takes me into very eloquently, takes me into the closing remarks of this series. Loving the curse into the gift. What if slavery, post traumatic transmissions, emotional drama, anguish, despair, shame, guilt, social obstacles, and strategic arrested development can be transmuted into the galactic gifts of legend and legacy? In order for this to be possible, first, the adornment of such instances must be adopted as fortunate and lifelong lesson bearing. Second, the power of such catalytic calling ought to be embraced as a necessary entity and irreplaceable, meaning there is enlightenment and empowerment in the mistake. There is all sorts of juicy endowment inside the failure. It really does depend on how and to what extent the angle is and by which we are viewing it. So, to the divine masculine who struggles with the challenge of bringing intuitive creativity into the spin, I offer you this. Just your personality blended with your loving intentions yields the power to mend the magical connectivity of you, the creator, and your offspring. Crank your redemption and reconciliations carefully with keen focus. Suspend your judgments. That will render you or anyone involved, right or wrong, the opportunities to heal. Because surely all is being utilized for therapeutic and healing purposes. If it weren't for your living examples and experiences, your personal evolutions, and your magical uses of elemental will become null and void. The spine of this momentous feat carries the affirming energies of A, the Mother of Cups, natural intuitive insights. B, the Three of Pentacles. If whenever there's weary or overwhelm, focus on your efforts where there's strength. And C, the Ten of Cups. Radiate your energy. Realize that there is an exciting opportunity inside your shadows as well as inside your light. Do not doubt the combination of this power. Into the wild unknown we go, so that our collective creativities may flow. And that's the conclusion of our Kindred Coaching Quest series. If you lasted through all three installments, I thank you kindly for your presence. And I hope that we will put forth the good foot to calm our storms and stand firm in the knowing that a new day rises with a more unique level of creativity to behold. So I thank you kindly for your presence, and I wish you well.